some comments or an email from folks who were not able to join us during the appointed time, and those will be entered into the record of the meeting in the minutes, as well as distributed to all of the commission members via email. I want to give a final chance for any members of the public to raise their hand using the function. Madam Chair, I think we're safe to say that that concludes public comment under this item.
Okay, I just wanted to take a minute, make sure I'm off mute, and also to see if there were any members of the commission that had questions of any of the folks who made public comments or wanted to address or comment about anything that they had heard.
Madam Chair,
okay.
That's in for the record. First, I want to express my sincere appreciation for all of the comments. I really appreciate the fact that people took time out of their schedules to come and to stay as late as we are right now to provide that comment. I think there's a lot that we as a commission have to wrestle with in these next couple of months. And as a couple of the comments have mentioned, there's a lot to accomplish before we go to the legislature in February. I know that as a commission as a whole, we take all of your comments seriously. I know that there's much that we're wrestling with and thinking about right now. I just, again, just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Member. Go ahead, Member Moore-Sibley.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to echo those sentiments of Member Jensen. You know, this is one of the toughest committees that I serve on, and we understand that this is really, we got to get it right. And so I want everybody to understand that. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I just know for myself, this is the one committee that really keeps me up at night because we have a lot of tough decisions and we are spending a considerable amount of time trying to take everyone's recommendations and perspectives into consideration as we move this forward to the legislature. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I heard two definitions given, I guess you could say. One by Mr. John Villadita and the other by Sylvia Lazos on optimal funding. And I know since we just had that at our meeting, if we could take that into consideration, I didn't write it down verbatim, but they seem to have some really key points as we were trying to come up with that with the consultant at the past meeting. So I just thought maybe we could also look at their definitions as well. Thank you.
Yes, I jotted some notes with that too. So we'll make sure, Jessica, when we go back, we can capture some of them. I think there were 3 or 4 that had suggestions on language, verbiage, or considerations for the optimal. And the last person who spoke, I think it's the last person who spoke, or one toward the end, recognizing that we were having conversations about steps. So the restore, the adequate, and then the optimal. So it sounded like she felt that that was a good way to address and really focus on that restore and adequate right off the bat. So I thought that was helpful. I also thought it was helpful, the one, it might have been John Verdita, but someone had mentioned that to focus our efforts on the base, ensuring that dollars are going to the base as it goes on. And I know that's the conversation that we're in right now, additional dollars as they are allocated, where would they go and where would they go first, to ensure what I think someone else brought up was to ensure that children are receiving the services that they indeed need to be successful and meet and exceed state standards in, is our true hope. So I think all of that was really valuable. Anybody else before I, yes, Member Mathis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission, and public that we can't see, so we know you're there. I too am grateful. I too am grateful for the not just the number of you that take time, but those of you that have been there every single time we've met with comments and guidance and suggestions and input. It is a big deal. And I am not here representing a district. I am not here representing any state government. I am here from that different perspective. And so the one thing my heart tells me to just share this is there is no doubt that through this process, the people that have been here from day one and repeatedly are those that care deeply about kids. Absolutely care deeply about kids. So there is no shortage of intention and desires to be something better than the worst in the nation, to be something better than not meeting needs of kids, to be something better than gaping student achievement differentials between our poor kids and our Black kids and our brown kids. Like, I know there's no one that's participated in this process that doesn't believe deeply that we all want to be better and do better, so that ultimately we can allow kids to realize their full potential. And the thing that ultimately is going to be the hardest, it's not about the formula. The formula is about the plumbing, right? And so that's the plumbing. And as long as there's insufficient resource in the plumbing, we're going to feel pain. We're going to feel pain. And so at some point, I want us, my hope, my Christmas list item is that we as a collective of deeply motivated around kids, if we can come together to really get focused on that ball, recognizing the difficulties that the legislature is going to be experiencing. We are, after all, in the middle of a deadly pandemic. It makes timing incredibly inconvenient. But I don't know how, as a group of adults, we look at kids and say, well, we didn't quite do it because the timing was inconvenient. And so I want to marshal us, just if there's an opportunity for us to think about what we can do together. Because there is no sort of tension and don't do this because it'll hurt these kids and not hurt those kids. And that's not, at the end of the day, going to allow us to move out of the bottom, right? And so I hope as we go through that we can find a way to look above and be a bit more bold in what we deem to be possible. So rather than spending our time trying to figure out how to hurt people less, hurt different districts less, or different groups of kids less than the other kids, that seems like a really low bar of aspiration for grown-ups. And is there a scenario under which, and so I'm grateful that CCA, Mr. Gordita, thank you, for you said it out loud, property tax. There it is, there's something we could be talking about, right? And is there something that we could, maybe because everyone is deeply motivated, not for the same reason necessarily, it may be because the pressure of what the hold harmless may represent. That may be the thing that moves you. It may be because you are deeply passionate around ELL learners, or we're all sort of advocating with a perspective. But what we all want is something that is better than what it is now. And so I am grateful. There's so much dedication and so much devotion to kids in our state. That's wonderful. And collectively, for 53 years, we have not touched this formula. For 53 years, and now I understand why. It turns out it's a big deal to touch. It's complicated. And so my heart just had that on it, and I am so grateful for the amount of commitment. And I get curious about, can we channel our commitment into something that's a little bit bolder, and a little bit bigger, and a little bit for every Nevada kid?
Nicely said. Thank you. Anyone else? Paul, you look like you're Member Johnson. You look like you're on the edge of.
Well, I didn't really have anything to say. I must have just looked like I had something to say. If I were to provide some comment, I would just have to echo the expression of gratitude for people taking their time out to share their thoughts and feelings about this process. This is life-changing in many ways because we're affecting people's livelihoods, we're affecting student development, I mean, and I'm sure that no one on this commission entered into this lightly. I have taken into consideration and to heart all of the comments. I can't say that I agree with all of them, but I certainly have taken into consideration every public comment that I have heard. My wife is a second grade teacher. I'm a basketball coach. I'm a product of the system. My kids went through public school and were part of the system. So I am connected in a very emotional and committed way to make sure that we figure out a solution that's best for all of Nevada's kids, regardless of their circumstances. So, but this is a heavy lift, especially starting in what I believe is a huge deficit between where we are now before the budget cuts and even adequacy, let alone optimal. So it's a huge lift. I appreciate everybody on the commission's work on this. You all have my respect. Like I said, without the public comment, I think it's also important to note that we acknowledge that this commission has been influenced by public comment. We have made recommendations and decisions based on input that we've received from the public. So it's not that we have not listened necessarily, but perhaps there's a perspective that we did not share at the time. So that's the reason I made not into our recommendation. That's all I want to say, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Member Mather, Fueling, Casey, Member Hobbs, Vice Chair Hobbs. Okay. I guess as my final thoughts, I just want to reiterate, I'm not sure there's been a meeting that we have not at some point in time taken a moment or two to lament the fact that there is not the funding that we would hope exists out there. And to Member Johnson's point, that was before COVID, it is during COVID, and what we need to make sure is it doesn't extend beyond. So as we delve into optimal and methods for funding optimal, we hope to spur conversations that will take us from the bottom of the country to far beyond that bigger, bolder aspirations that we have as a commission. With that, I also want to recognize that we have ongoing conversations, and we'll continue those conversations in December, not just about optimal funding and increasing funding for education in Nevada for all students in Nevada, but also to make sure that this is our number one core concept is equity, and that is equity for all children. Those are children that are at risk of learning. Those are children who are GATE children. Those are students who are English language learners. Those are students who are special education. And there are general education students. So we make sure that we focus every conversation on all of those groups, and the equity is for students as well as equity across districts. So I want to make sure that we bring up the conversations and continue those. I know, Member Johnson, you've talked about hyperinflation at various times. So how and if we need to address that, and where does that occur? So we've spent a great deal of time on thinking about adjusting costs by attendance zones rather than districts, because we felt that was more discrete and more responsive to some of the changes in costs across the state of Nevada. So we'll have those ongoing conversations. We'll continue to address the formula, the administrative caps, all of the different elements within the formula that we are still having conversations about, as well as tackling optimal, what does that look like, the funding for it, and also taking a look at ensuring that the implementation and the monitoring of this over time is addressed in a sensible way. I do think, on closing, that one of the key pieces is that ability to make sure that it is equitable, that there's accountability, and that there's transparency. in this, not only this process, but in the formula. With all of that said, seeing no one else saying they have something to say, then let us adjourn the meeting. The next time we will be together is December 18th for a regular commission. Yes.
As honest as it seems, we have another period of public comment. So if you could open that period so I could tell you we don't have anything, appreciate that.
Oh, and how would I forget public comment number 2? I should have looked at my agenda. So public comment number 2. Oh, no, actually, I don't think I have it on my agenda. At any rate, Jessica Todman, do we have anyone for public comment number 2?
Madam Chair, I have not received any emails. I will give a moment for anyone who's interested to raise their hand in the chat. Been taught by my colleagues that I think that qualifies. We have one. It's like that feels like teacher wait time to me. Sally Ryan, I am unmuting you, and you seem to be green, so please go ahead. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. Right, it's not just me.
No, we don't hear her. Did you say Sally? Sally Ryan?
Dolly.
Oh, Dolly. I was going to say, yes. I think we got an email from her. Dolly, did you unmute?
She appears to be unmuted on my end and on her end. Okay, so unfortunately I had technical difficulties, and now it is showing that she is offline. Anybody else for public comment number 2? Okay, due to the complexities of today's meetings, we'll do a grace period if we receive items within the next half hour, so we will include them in the record. But Madam Chair, we do not have public comment, any further public comment under this item.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, we are adjourned for today, and the next meeting will be December 18th. Please, everyone, have a safe, wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and take time to give thanks. Bye.